Hello, this is the Hidden Door Book Club. We're going to start today a new recording of our book club. We have been doing book clubs for very long, just reading to each other books that we like and discussing them. But we decided to now put this online to give it a bigger conversation and have it in a public forum and see how it goes. And today we're going to start with Pride and Prejudice. My name is Melissa.
I'm Julian. Hello.
This book is the type of recommendations I give many times, things that will be by women and things that men are often not very familiar with. Not very often men can read or get the chance to read women. So I think this is a good chance for him to see this. I've been trying to show him interesting perspectives of this that are not as common normally for men. So we're going to be reading Pride and Prejudice because it's been a female favorite for very long. It's a very good book. And to celebrate the 250 years of Jane Austen that we are celebrating on 2025. So we will get started with that. How about you start reading the first chapter?
Yeah, sure. So let's get going. Also, thanks to the Project Gutenberg for the EPUB version of the book, so we can read it comfortably from our screen. Ooh, this illustration is very nice.
I really like the...
Reading Jane's letters. Nice.
Yeah, there's Hugh Thompson as the illustrator in this book. So, let's see.
Okay, let's start. Should we start with the preface or skip it and go to chapter 1?
Just by somebody else, then let's skip it.
It's probably
I don't know. Maybe it has like good like cultural aspects or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to
go
start
back to
reading.
it later.
Yeah, we can read it some more time.
Yeah. Let's go for chapter 1 should be this one. Right? Yeah. Chapter 1. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighborhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters.
Wait.
What?
I really like the start of this book and I kind of want to read it now. It's so classic and it's like so well known. It's like, I want to read it.
Well, of course, by all means, go first. You start and then I'll continue with the second one. Go ahead.
Okay, so... It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighborhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as rightful property of someone or other of their daughters. My dear Mr. Bennet, said his lady to him one day, have you heard that Nettlefield Park has been let at last? I am not inventing things. I am just probably going too fast in my head because I have read it many times. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Bennet replied that he had not. But it is, returned she, for Mrs. Long has just been here, and she told me all about it. Mr. Bennet made no answer. Do not you want to know who has taken it? Cried his wife impatiently. You want to tell me, and I have no objections to hearing it. This was invitation enough. Why, my dear, you must know Mrs. Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with with Mr. Morris immediately that he's to take possession but before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week.
Wait, question. What is Michaelmas? I was reading it as Michael, but then saw the mass at the end. So what is it?
I don't know if I said it correctly. I could have said it wrong.
Yeah, but
English is not our first language.
it should be obvious now, but by our names on the screen, but just to make sure.
No, not really. Your name is Julian and my name is Melissa.
Well, yeah. That's true.
I mean, it's not really going to help a lot. Michaelmas is, I know it's like a Christian festivity, but I don't know what that is. Let me check.
Yeah.
Monday, September 29 in this year. So September 29, it is Fiesta de los Arcángeles. So
Christian feast day
Saint Michael.
It's because of Archangel Michael. Okay. Now I get it.
Okay, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but let's pretend I did. Okay.
Okay, continue.
So yes, it is because of the archangels. Is how you say archangels?
Archangels.
I don't know.
Maybe.
So September, it seems, is when this whole thing started. And some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week. What's his name? Bingley. Is he married or single? Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls. How so? How can it affect them? My dear Mr. Bennet, replied his wife, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I am thinking of his marrying one of them. Is that his design in settling here? Design? Nonsense. How can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them. And therefore, you must visit him as soon as he comes. I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go. Or you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will be better. For as you are as handsome as any of them, Mr. Bingley might like you the best of the party. Oh, my dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. In such cases, a woman has often not much beauty to think of. I mean, that was nice, isn't it?
That's very kind.
But my dear, you must indeed go and see Mr. Bingley when he comes into their neighborhood. It is more than I engage for, I assure you. But consider your daughters. Only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, merely on that account. For in general, you know that they visit no newcomers. Indeed, you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not. Now, the thing is, at that time, women had to be introduced. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You couldn't just go up and introduce yourself to a man. I mean, that would be really, really inappropriate, you know. You would be a harlot. So, in general, normally people had to be introduced by someone, especially if you were being introduced to someone who is of a higher rank, right? Because this was a very, very rigid hierarchical society.
Is very important. Yeah.
We're talking about like the gentry. The gentry refers to like landed people, like people who own land, right? They were not all aristocrats, but if they own land, they would be gentry. So it's sort of closer.
That's a lower level, but closer to being.
Yeah, okay. They were gentlemen, right? That is who was allowed to be called a gentleman, right? Like you remember when we were watching, like if you were watching Titanic, and you saw the part where, like. The guy who is going to marry Rose says like someone says like you almost pass. He does. He said like you almost pass for a gentleman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember that.
It's like almost, which is also funny because I mean this is being said by people from the U.S., which were basically just borrowing the whole class system there because there was no such class system in the US, you know.
They are already not
really
there, and in that
because this is a legal thing, right? This is like a, you know, and so normally if you were going to be introduced by someone, it had to be. I mean, if you were going to be introduced to someone who was higher in status, then somebody else had to that already knew this person had to introduce them. You were not supposed to just go up to them and introduce yourself. It's seen as very rude, like very poor education. You are an embarrassment.
Right.
And also people could just not talk to you. And that's it. And women were women. So basically they cannot talk to anybody first. They have to be introduced and things like that, unless it's like amongst other women, I imagine. And of course of the same status. But normally people would, for example, like send in a neighborhood, they would send like cards. Send my card, which is like a card with your name, and people would inquire about people, like just to know who is he, who you want to be involved with, right?
Okay, right.
So basically, women of this class didn't have jobs, obviously, and because they live off the land, right? Land means like you have tenants who have the farms or things like that, or you just, exactly. Like your family's income comes from the land and you don't work, right? Women in this class do not work. Anyone who works is not seen in the same level because working means that you're below. Like the men would work in terms of like management of their own property and shit.
Just business management, but not.
Not like I have a job. Not very common.
I have a boss.
Maybe they would be in some of the professions that were allowed, basically, for people from this social class, which was like the military or the church or just like land, right? So sometimes like maybe if you had been to university and were interested in legal parts, that would also work, but it was mostly just because you wanted to be in like politics. But mostly only people who had land basically could have a say on things, right? And normally everybody who was a noble would have a seat in the House of Lords, so they would make legislation, right?
But then, how did it
not
work?
Like a country lawyer kind of thing? No.
Yeah, but how did it work when someone wanted to work, not because of need, but because they wanted to do something? Women, especially. Was it that considered? Of course, it was considered not a proper thing, but if they wanted to do it, they just couldn't.
I mean, I don't have enough knowledge, but I know that there were very limited professions in which they would allow women, right? And most women, like from the gentry who, for example, ended up in difficult circumstances and didn't have any money, like their parents died and their inheritance is not theirs because they're women. So it goes to the next male living relative and they are basically destitute. and because women were property basically. Like they would have dowries, but the dowry would pass from the father to the husband.
Male.
Basically paying for taking my daughter away. Like, thank you for taking that. Now I'm paying you for it. It is like basically that's how it worked. And women basically had no rights most of the time. Some women were allowed to inherit, like after their parents died, if it was the type of inheritance that was not tied up like legally into like a line of succession, because many times those lines of succession were basically built to ensure that whatever property was in a family remain in that family, right? Because if women inherited, then it goes to a different last name, right? Because women didn't keep their names either. So they didn't want that. They wanted the property to remain in their own last name because they're so important and shit. Mm-hmm. And so basically, women had nothing. Women of these, like women who were educated, right? Women basically were allowed to learn about like music and languages and literature, just like on top literature, but it's not like you shouldn't pretend to really know about things in general because it's very, very, very passé. Like people don't like that. But like basically the female virtues were within music, like they all had to learn to play some instrument, and all of it was, to show that you were an educated, like part of the charms of a woman for you to find a husband, basically. And so they were supposed to do that in paint, like watercolors or whatever, embroidering. Those things were acceptable.
Things are considered art, but as hobbies, like, for example.
But as a hobby, exactly. Yeah. It would be very inappropriate for you to go beyond that. For men also was inappropriate who were part of the gentry or gentlemen or nobility, because basically that's a worker's person. Like you hire painters. You're not a painter. That is just not okay.
Okay.
Right. So they were not supposed to do any of those things either.
It is funny how some people now want to go back to that. I don't get it.
Because they don't know. They don't know what it was. They just think they know. They have this idea that they know what...
Very misplaced idea of...
Yeah, like everybody would love... Like, for example, for me, the education they gave women, or at least the areas of education that women were allowed into, would be great for me. And it's not like I want to work now. Like, if they told me you can read all day... Like
that would be perfect, but
paint and then play the piano all day and everything is always paid and everything you do is go to tea parties and dances. For me, that would be great, right? But at the same time, it means that you have to find a husband because you are worthless on your own and you need to further your family's interests. So don't marry down, and also don't learn too much because that would be so inappropriate. If you do, please keep quiet about it. Like just sit and be pretty over there. And that's all that we need from you. And like, for example, I am blind as a bat. If I were to wear glasses, that would already put me very, very low on the pecking order. It's like, we prefer you pretend that you can see around yourself.
Yeah,
because that would be so terrible for you to like not look as pretty as possible in front of men. I mean, you're ruining our reputation by looking so bad. Your only value.
That's very problematic.
Yeah, right.
That's why I think it's weird that people believe.
They don't know.
I mean, what I mean is,
like most people who want this,
but
they don't own property.
No,
they don't have. They wouldn't be that.
Exactly.
They would just be serving them.
The other thing that I find puzzling is that it's become a sort of a trend, seeing women romanticizing this and wanting to go back to this.
With the triad wives and all that shit.
Yeah, that's part of it.
It's a little of a different era, and it's very different. Women have always romanticized this because there is a lot of things that were pretty about it and nice. And for one side,
I understand the
idea
aesthetics.
of the aesthetics of it is pretty, but most women don't actually want to go back to that as it was, because it was shit for women, right?
Of course it was, but that's why I'm saying that I find it weird, because it makes no sense in terms of what you were able to do as a woman back then compared to now. I understand some things that make you want to expect that kind of living, but in general terms, it's just I don't know. It makes no sense. It's weird.
It's just, I think people always feel like that with, I think not only the past, but also with fantasy and things. If you are actually living that thing that you're looking into, like when you look at an isekai and all that, most of the times, like, people are imagining going back into a fantasy world that looks like a role game in like a sort of medieval European looking sort of kind of thing. But then you would have to find a way to, like, if you're a woman, you don't have any female hygiene products. You don't have toilets in the houses with running water normally, if we're talking about that time. I mean, like, the first thing that I did when I was reading, I was actually reading Jane Austen, and I was like, oh, it would be nice, because there's another thing, that the way that women are educated is basically the most valuable thing for you is to be married. We have been educated this way for centuries, right? And so a lot of us still have that there. Like, even if it's subconscious, it kind of sounds very pretty, like the idea that someone is going to propose, and like it's kind of like, it sounds pretty, and things kind of click with our Disney Disney fantasy mode of when we were told we wanted to be princesses and things like that.
The Disney princess is also very
it's part of an education, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at it, like really look at it, like, what if I actually woke up and I am there? Like, turns out I woke up in the body of Elizabeth Bennet. Then I wake up, and what happens? Like, after that, how do I go to the bathroom? Right? It's like, and those are the little things that we don't really think about ever, right?
And there must be 1,000 details that we don't know.
Like, the first thing I did after that, because
they didn't talk about it,
because ADHD, it was like I was reading, I don't know if it was this or it was something else that was Regency, but I was reading a historical book, and so historical context, let's say, different context, historical context, and I was like, it would be so nice to just like play the piano, and like you don't have to like do all of the housework because you have servants. I mean, being rich is always nice in any time. And it's like, I would be able to learn about playing the piano and like painting and things like that. And, there would be nature out to go and walk and see things that are beautiful, and people care for that. And, and then I was like, when did they invent the toilet again? And then that afternoon, that's what I did. I just went into learn about the toilet. They didn't have one. Like, most people didn't have one. At the time, there were already some versions of a toilet, but not an actual flushing toilet. Yeah,
we are used to. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was not exactly
I saw
something that I would probably everybody would adapt really quickly if they were actually taken into that time, because we adapt to everything.
There's no other choice, really. But I saw a post talking about that recently, when they were showing a very old chair from that time that was basically a very, very pretty chair, but it was a toilet. So you lifted up the cushion, and it was the
Korean Englishman.
Yeah,
the guys in I think it was in the Jolly Channel. They Oli literally bought a Victorian toilet, and it was like this, like a huge, like a side table, like a very fancy side table that if you open, there is like a china bowl that is actually made like porcelain and is like super decorated and beautiful. I don't know how it is a toilet. I don't know how it works. I don't remember, but it was very fancy.
They were very fancy, yeah.
Yeah. It was very funny. But yeah, like there would be a lot of things that you would not enjoy in that time. I think we always like the idea of things.
The thing I think would be the most difficult, at least for me, is the amount of layers of clothes everyone always had, especially women. But
men also had like a lot of layers.
I like how they look, and it's gorgeous. All of it, all of the clothes, all of the styles. But so many layers of clothes seem, I don't know, I think it would be so uncomfortable.
For me, the lack of actual underwear would be really weird.
Yeah, because the underwear was something else.
Yeah, there's not like you don't have that layer protecting you against the currents or anything. Though I guess if you have so many layers, you don't really have any currents, but still.
It would be very difficult for you to get an actual air current because of so many things you would have on top of you. So, yeah, there's no difference really.
Who knows how it would be, if it would be comfortable or uncomfortable to live with all of those layers, because many times they had like the layers that were considered underwear, like the linens and things like underneath. Yeah. And those were the ones that they watched the most often, because that's where all the sweat and everything was. And the other ones were like the garments that were either like hardy for work or like very fancy to display. Yeah. But then you don't want to be washing them really often because it's going to wear it down and damage it.
Care of that.
And also, yeah, exactly. You don't want to, affect it very much.
Considering how expensive it was, because it was also everything was handmade. And you had
exactly like from thread, from literal thread onwards. There was people involved in creating that garment, exactly. And it took very long. So, I mean, you want to take care of it.
True.
I think we should have clarified the fact that our book clubs are very much a discussion book club where there is a lot of discussion right in the middle of reading, because
it's usually how it works.
About it.
It's usually how it works when we're reading. So one chapter could last 3 hours, but also since we're starting to do this to share it publicly and on YouTube mainly, we cannot just read, because then copyright strikes might hate us. So
right, yeah.
We have to.
There's also that. But this is in the public domain, of course.
Yeah, but still.
It's
better to be safe than sorry, I think.
Yes. So, let's continue doing this. We should read.
Yeah, let's finish one chapter at least.
Let's do our best. But consider your daughters. Only thing, what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, merely on this account. For in general, they visit no newcomers. Indeed, you must go. For it will be impossible for us to visit them if you do not, because he has to go and introduce himself, or take his car there, go and say hi, because he's the head of the household. Yeah. He's, if he meets them, if he goes and visits, basically they know them now, right? Like they can talk.
Yeah.
But
they have to wait first.
He has to do that first, right? And so you're over scrupulous, surely. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you. And I will send a few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. Though I must throw in a good word for my little Lizzie. I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others. And I am sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half as good-humored as Lydia, but you're always giving her the preference. They have none of them much to recommend them, replied he. I mean, thank you for the vote of confidence, Dad.
Yeah.
They're all silly and ignorant like other girls. But Lizzie has something more of a quickness than her sisters. Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? I agree.
Yeah.
You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion for my poor nerves. You mistake me, my dear. I have the highest respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. I love the relationship between the two. I mean, it's extremely dysfunctional, but it's very amusing.
I want to learn to talk like this for the purpose of having better arguments and fights.
At least they sound better.
They will be funny at least. Very educated way to fight. I like that.
You do not know what I suffer, but I hope you will get over it and live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighborhood. It will be of no use if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them. Depend upon it, my dear, that when there are 20, I will visit them all. Mr. Bennet was so odd a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humor, reserve, and caprice that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. When she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous. The business of her life was to get her daughters married. Its solace was visiting and news. And by news, we mean gossip.
Of course. I almost ready to make my hair look like him. I will.
It would totally work. It would be perfect. I vote for that. I very much approve. There is this guy.
It wouldn't work without the outfit.
That's where I was going. There is this guy.
Okay, go ahead.
A British guy who just always liked like period clothing way more than, regular current clothing. Mm-hmm. So he started creating. He's like looking for old things and also like. So when he's, I think, a tailor now, and he always dresses period. He especially loves Regency period clothing, in that style. And he's always wearing that, and he looks so fantastic. It's just like great. Just like that would look fantastic on you. I mean, it would be so expensive, but it would look so good. You could totally do it very easily if you did it very slowly, like buying, because the most expensive part, I think, is probably the fabrics, because like actual proper fabrics without any polyester in them are very expensive now. And very few and far between.
Incredibly expensive, and it will be a lot of work, but yeah.
I think that's the hardest part is the actually creation of the garments, because you have to find someone to do them, or you have to learn, which would take very, very long. That's the most expensive part, the actual labor of it.
Sounds like a pretty cool
it will look
hobby
really good.
for now, but it's will be fun, and it will look really good. I agree.
Yeah, like to get to that point, I think it has to be more than a hobby.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but it would be. I mean, you would look great. I think it would be good.
We could start just by having it as a very fancy Halloween costume for 1 year, just to try.
I like that. I am absolutely in. Remember that they're going to do that ball in December.
Yeah.
We can totally just like work really hard until then, like crazy people, and then
we
show up at the ball. I mean, we only have to go to England and create new outfits and shit. But yeah,
we can do that
I really like this
book
book
in a month,
because how it shows so much about like the way of thinking of people then and the life of people there, like the story was a lot criticism by her, of how society worked and how ridiculous she found everything. But it also shows other things that were just basically in her based on the society she lived in, right? Like the way that she thinks what she thinks of other women who didn't have any other interest other than going with the flow of that time, which was like getting married and doing things like her mother, for example.
Yeah.
And things like that. Well, like the mother in the story, I like that very much about this story, like that perspective of it and the way that it is written, because you can see that.
Yeah. I have to. I mean, I remember the movie. The first thing I saw related to this story, which is of course very different to what the actual book.
Yeah. Well, they do have to adjust it a lot for
But then I saw
the sensibilities of the current population.
Yeah. Then I saw the series. It was a mini series, right?
Did we watch that?
Not complete, but
The BBC one? I love
BBC
that one.
exactly.
So good.
I like that better, of course, because it's
it's much more accurate in terms of the book.
And so now
I love it, really.
Now it was time to go back to the original source and read it like it should be read. So
yes,
I'm happy that we're doing this,
and I'm glad that it's going to be a book and not a movie, because books are most often seen from within the character.
Yes.
So it gives you a lot more in terms of,
it's very difficult to do it in a movie, because it becomes.
Yeah, well, it depends on the actor.
But
100%.
It's very hard to do. Yes, and the way to tell the things that we read as thoughts of the protagonist are very difficult to do in movies, unless you have a lot of what's the word? I forgot the word.
Unless you're watching anime and they give you the internal monologue.
The internal monologue, that was what I was thinking of. Yeah, a movie with a lot of internal monologues will become boring for most of the audience, so that's why they don't do it.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. I understand how that wouldn't work. Yeah. Also, it's not what people are used to in most movies. Like, it works really well in anime because it's already an established thing of anime also. And because it's very well made, right? The way they do it, well, most of the times, right?
Yeah, not all of them, but most are very good in that sort of storytelling.
Yeah, I think even like just the gesture part and like the way that they interact is very different in anime.
Completely.
And it gives you already like a doorway to that.
Yes.
So yeah.
I wonder, is it? It should be, but I don't know. Is there any anime that is based on Pride and Prejudice?
I don't know if there is. I know there is one that is called Emma. It's not really about the book Emma by Jane Austen. There's another book that is called Emma, but it's not about that. It's like a story of a vaguely Victorian maid in a very rich household, which I think is where she's mistreated and then loved. One of those plots.
Yeah,
I think, but I haven't watched it. I'm going to be honest, so I might be inventing the whole thing. But yeah,
something to keep in mind. We can watch maybe while recording and watch one of those animes and see how they work and how they tell the story. Okay, let's continue. Chapter 2. Mr. Bennet was among the earliest of those who waited on Mr. Bingley. He had always intended to visit him, though to the last always assuring his wife that he should not go. Until the evening after the visit was paid, she had no knowledge of it. It was then disclosed in the following manner. Observing his second daughter employed in trimming a hat, he suddenly addressed her with, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie." "We are not in a way to know that what Mr. Bingley likes," said her mother resentfully, "since we are not to visit." "But you forget, Mamma," said Elizabeth, "that we shall meet him at the assemblies and that Mrs. Long has promised to introduce him. I do not believe Mrs. Long will do any such thing. She has 2 nieces of her own. She is a selfish, hypocritical woman,
Okay.
and I have no opinion of her. Clearly, there's no opinion in that sentence.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Mrs. Bennett is kind of an asshole. So you know, it's like one of those people who will just basically mouth you in 3 seconds, just based on their mood, shifting mood, no respect, no nothing, you know?
No filter.
Yeah,
Apparently.
like her husband is clearly all the time just basically poking fun at her because he's bored with the people around him. And that's the most enjoyment he gets, just bothering them, which
Yeah.
also makes him a bit of an asshole. But we've all been in that role as well at times, just like messing with people
Yeah.
who
I can relate with both.
are too ridiculous not to mess with,
Yeah,
you know?
true.
But yeah, it's like,
Okay, where was I? No more have I, said Mr. Bennet, and I am glad to find that you do not depend on her serving you. Mrs. Bennet deigned not to make any reply, but unable to contain herself, began scolding one of her daughters. Don't keep coughing so, Kitty, for heaven's sake. Have a little compassion on my nerves. You tear them to pieces. Kitty has no discretion in her coughs, said her father. She ties them ill. I do not cough for my own amusement, replied Kitty fretfully. When is your next ball to be, Lizzie? Tomorrow fortnight. Aye, so it is, cried her mother, and Mrs. Long does not come back till the day before, so it will be impossible for her to introduce him, for she will not know him herself. Then, my dear, you may have the advantage of your friend and introduce Mr. Bingley to her. Impossible, Mr. Bennet, impossible, when I am not acquainted.
She's also quite slow.
Impossible, Mr. Bennet, impossible, when I am not acquainted with him myself. How can you be so teasing? I honor your circumspection. A fortnight's acquaintance is certainly very little. One cannot know what a man really is by the end of a fortnight. But if we do not venture, somebody else will. And after all, Mrs. Long and her nieces must stand their chance. And therefore, as she will think it an act of kindness, if you decline the office, I will take it on myself. The girls stared at their father. Mrs. Bennet said only, "Nonsense, nonsense." "What can be the meaning of that emphatic exclamation?" cried he. "Do you consider the forms of introduction and the stress that is laid on them as nonsense? I cannot quite agree with you there. What say you, Mary? For you are a young lady of deep reflection, I know, and read great books and make extracts." Mary wished to say something very sensible, but knew not how. While Mary is adjusting her ideas, he continued, "Let us return to Mr. Bingley." "I am sick of Mr. Bingley," cried his wife. "I am sorry to hear that, but why did you not tell me so before? If I had known as much this morning, I certainly would not have called on him. It is very unlucky, but as I have actually paid the visit, we cannot escape the acquaintance now." The astonishment of the ladies was just what he wished that of Mrs. Bennet, perhaps surpassing the rest. Though when the first tumult of joy was over, she began to declare that it was what she had expected all the while. "How good it was in you, my dear Mr. Bennet, but I knew I should persuade you at last. I was sure you loved your girls too well to neglect such an acquaintance. Well, how pleased I am. And it is such a good joke, too, that you should have gone this morning and never said a word about it till now." "Now, Kitty, you may cough as much as you choose," said Mr. Bennet, and as he spoke, he left the room, fatigued with the raptures of his wife. "What an excellent father you have, girls," said she when the door was shut. "I do not know how you will ever make him amends for his kindness, or me either, for that matter. At our time of life, it is not so pleasant, I can tell you, to be making new acquaintances every day. But for your sakes, we would do anything. Lydia, my love, though you are the youngest, I dare say Mr. Bingley will dance with you at the next ball. Oh, said Lydia, stoutly, I am not afraid. I am not afraid, for though I am the youngest, I am the tallest. The rest of the evening was spent in conjecturing how soon he would return Mr. Bennet's visit, and determining when they should ask him to dinner.
I mean, quickly proving her youth by talking about her height as if it had any sort of matter in the topic.
Yeah. How old are they in this story, roughly?
They will tell you.
Okay.
They are very young because women married very, very young.
Yeah, I was
they were
thinking about
expected
that.
to marry very young.
They're between 12 and 15, I assume. Something like
Them? No, that's excessive.
Not so
But
young.
normally, during this time, women would be presented in society. Like they would normally have like a ball that was like their debut in society. Mm-hmm. And they would say she's out, meaning
Yes.
like out of the nursery. Like because children were basically educated away from the family.
Yes.
We used to say like children should be seen and not heard. They meant like seen for 15 minutes at tea and then taken back up to be taught by governesses. And that's what I was going to say earlier. We were talking about women working, like women from this social class. They basically could only be governesses, which were a kind of higher level servant, or companions, someone who educates a young lady and is seen is the same level of the people there, but is still a servant.
Yeah, but it's a bit more well respected because they are teachers, basically. So they have to be well educated too.
Is more well respected, and is the only reason why it was a respectable job for a lady of genteel origins, but it's still someone who works. So basically you just drop from society at that point. You're not part of society. Society meaning people who have money and don't have to work.
Yeah. I get it.
So yeah. What was I saying before that? The ages. Okay. So they would normally do like a debut in between like 17, 18 years of age. That's when they would debut in society normally, but it varied. It wasn't like an official thing. It would vary. So you could not socialize with a woman who was not out in society, right? And normally they would not be invited to like balls or dinners. They would enjoy the family. When someone is visiting, they wait until they are out. Before that, they're like children and they're like away in the nursery most of the time being educated.
Yes.
Where they're not in the way. That kind of thing.
Of course.
So yeah. But they will tell you how old they are. In chapter 3. Not all that Mrs. Bennet, however, with the assistance of her 5 daughters, could ask on the subject was sufficient to draw from her husband any satisfactory description of Mr. Bingley. They attacked him in various ways, with barefaced questions, ingenious suppositions, and distant surmises. But he eluded the skill of them all. And they were at last obliged to accept the second-hand intelligence of their neighbors. Lady Lucas. Of their neighbor, Lady Lucas. Her report was highly favorable. Sir William had been delighted with him. He was quite young, wonderfully handsome, extremely agreeable, and to crown the whole, he meant to be at the next assembly with a large party. Nothing could be more delightful. To be fond of dancing was a certain step towards falling in love, of course. And the very lively hopes of Mr. Bingley's heart were entertained. If I can but see one of my daughters happily settled at Netherfield, said Mrs. Bennet to her husband, and all the others equally well married, I shall have nothing to wish for. In few days, Mr. Bingley returned Mr. Bennet's visit and sat about 10 minutes with him in his library. At this time, people paid calls, which was basically to go and visit someone. And it was normally like 15 minutes at a certain time when people were receiving visitors. That was a set thing. And you were supposed to do this just out of politeness because, I mean, it's part of the established thing. They visited you, you have to visit them and so on. And it's normally like that, but you're not supposed to stay like forever there because, I mean, they have people to see.
I assume that the time for the visit was similar or close to the time of tea, maybe? Or that was a different...
Well, I am normally often very confused about the time because they'd say like country hours of city hours because, for example, in the city, they used to party a lot more. So they had a lot more balls and like theater and shit. And people from this time would like go to bed extremely late and wake up super late. So they would say pay morning calls, but it was afternoon. Right. And morning calls were like people would visit in the morning, but I think it wasn't too early really. But, you know, things like that. But I think it was like depending on the time when people decided to open their house, but I don't know enough about it.
Okay. In a few days, Mr. Bingley returned Mr. Bennet's visit and sat about 10 minutes with him in his library. He had entertained hopes of being admitted to a side of the young ladies, of whose beauty he had heard much. But he saw only the father. I'm sure that Mr. Bennet did that on purpose. Of course.
100%, just to spite his wife. I mean, how stupid is that?
He's just...
Honestly. He might think he's stupid and that his wife is ridiculous for all of this and that women trying to catch men are even more ridiculous and like this is the only thing women care about. But honestly, they didn't have any other way to do it.
That was,
They were not allowed to do anything, basically.
That was the way to do things for her.
Yeah, like she will not have independence at all, economic independence in her life. She would have economic independence by being the mistress of a household, but the money was not really hers, it was her husband's, but it was the closest thing that she was going to get if she got married. If not, she just depends on whomever in her family is able to support her somehow.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, I understand his point of view of this is all ridiculous, but at the same time, you're being very selfish because you don't have to go through this shit. You know?
Yeah, you don't know what it is like.
And you should be caring about your daughters. Like, how about you do this easier for them instead of being such an asshole, you know? But whatever. So.
The
ladies were somewhat more fortunate, for they had the advantage of ascertaining from an upper window that he wore a blue coat and rode a black horse. It's sad. Oh, man, this is like the level of entertainment in their lives right now. An invitation to dinner was soon afterwards dispatched, and already had Mrs. Bennet planned the courses that were to credit her housekeeping when an answer arrived which deferred it all. Mr. Bingley was obliged to be in town the following day. And consequently unable to accept the honor of their invitation, etc. Mrs. Bennet was quite disconcerted. She could not imagine what business he could have in town so soon after his arrival in Hertfordshire. And she began to fear that he might always be flying about from one place to another and never settle at Netherfield as he ought to be. Lady Lucas quieted her fears a little by starting the idea of his being gone to London only to get a large party for the ball. And reports soon followed that Mr. Bingley was to bring 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen with him to the assembly. The girls grieved over such a number of ladies, but were comforted that at the day before the ball by hearing that instead of 12, he had brought only 6 with him from London.
Only 6.
His 5 sisters and a cousin. And when the party entered the assembly room, it consisted of only 5 altogether. Mr. Bingley, his 2 sisters, the husband of the eldest, and another young man. I mean,
it's quite a difference.
The way the gossip works here is fantastic.
Yeah.
I just love how she's mocking like the way that it was then. But I mean, that it still is, basically. This is life.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's very similar, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Like with,
I guess this is just humanity right there. Everybody talking shit all over the place.
There have been changes in rules for society and how people is expected to behave
and our access to information.
Access to information and technology, of course. But
that's the only thing. Like the people are still basically the same.
Still like this in many ways.
Yeah. So Mr. Bingley was good looking and gentlemanlike. He had a pleasant countenance and easy, unaffected manners. His sisters were fine women with an air of decided fashion. His brother-in-law, Mr. Hurst, merely looked the gentleman. But his friend, Mr. Darcy, soon drew the attention of the room by his fine, tall person, handsome features, noble mien. I don't know, what is that? And the report, which was in general circulation within 5 minutes after his entrance, of his having 10,000 a year. I mean, seriously, I always wonder how they knew these things. Like, who asks and how does this work?
Where do you get the information?
Yeah, because they always knew. You always knew everything about everybody. Like, who's getting this information and how?
But that is still a mystery today. Like how the neighbor knows about your life somehow if you don't talk to them in any way. Yeah.
Well, they talk to someone that you do talk to.
One of those mysteries of life. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. The gentleman pronounced him to be a fine figure of a man. The ladies declared he was much handsomer than Mr. Bingley, and he was looked at with great admiration for about half the evening, till his manners gave a disgust which turned the tide of his popularity. For he was discovered to be proud, to be above his company, and above being pleased, and not all his large estate in Derbyshire could save him from having the most forbidding, disagreeable countenance and being unworthy to be compared with his friend. Mr. Bingley had soon made himself acquainted with all the principal people in the room. He was lively and unreserved, danced every dance, was angry that the ball closed so early, and talked of giving one himself at Netherfield. Such amiable qualities must speak to themselves. What a contrast between him and his friend. Mr. Darcy danced only once with Mrs. Hurst and once with Miss Bingley, declined being introduced to any other lady, and spent the rest of the evening in walking about the room, speaking occasionally to one of his own party. His character was decided. He was the proudest, most disagreeable man in the world, and everybody hoped that he would never come there again. Amongst the most violent against him was Mrs. Bennet, of course, whose dislike of his general behavior was sharpened into particular resentment by his having slighted one of her daughters. Elizabeth Bennet had been obliged by the scarcity of gentlemen to sit down for 2 dances, and during part of that time Mr. Darcy had been standing near enough for her to overhear a conversation between him and Mr. Bingley, who came from a dance a few minutes to press his friend to join it. "Come, Mr. Darcy," he said. Oh, come, Darcy, he said. I must have you dance. I hate to see you standing about by yourself in this stupid manner. You had much better dance. I certainly shall not. You know how I detest it, unless I am particularly acquainted with my partner. At such an assembly as this, it would be insupportable. Your sisters are engaged, and there is no another woman in the room whom it would not be a punishment for me to stand up with. I would not be so fastidious as you are, cried Bingley, for a kingdom. Upon my honor, I have never met with so many pleasant girls in my life as I have this evening. And there are several of them, you see, uncommonly pretty. You are dancing with the only handsome girl in the room, said Mr. Darcy, looking at the eldest Miss Bennet. Oh, she's the most beautiful creature I have ever beheld. But there is one of her sisters sitting down just behind you, who is very pretty, and I dare say very agreeable. Do let me ask her ask my partner to introduce you. Which do you mean? And turning around, he looked for a moment at Elizabeth, till catching her eye, he withdrew his own and coldly said, "She's tolerable."
Tolerable.
But not handsome enough. But not handsome enough to tempt me. And I am in no humor at present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men. You had better return to your partner and enjoy her smiles, for you are wasting your time with me.
I love how the illustration shows clearly his character and the way he looks at other people. Is very just one image is very clear to portray.
Well, I cannot see it. Why can't I see it? I cannot see it.
Maybe because the illustrations appear in different parts of the book depending on the size of the window. So
Yeah.
It
Going
is
to open it. Wait. Wow, that is so appropriate. Yeah, that looks exactly like him looking down on her
you just
like an
understand
asshole.
who he is immediately. Okay, let's continue.
Mr. Bingley followed his advice. Mr. Darcy walked off, and Elizabeth remained with no very cordial feelings towards him. I mean, honestly, who wouldn't? She told the story, however, with a great spirit among her friends, for she had a lively, playful disposition which delighted in anything ridiculous. I mean, she does have that father.
Yeah.
So, the evening altogether passed off pleasantly to the whole family. Mrs. Bennet had seen her eldest daughter much admired by the Netherfield party. Mr. Bingley had danced with her twice, and she had been distinguished by his sisters. Jane was as much gratified by this as her mother could be, though in a quieter way. I can imagine what that means. Elizabeth felt Jane's pleasure. Mary had herself mentioned to Miss Bingley as the most accomplished girl in the neighborhood. Accomplished meaning who has developed very well her skills. You know, the things that would be seen as accomplishments for women. You know, embroidery, piano, languages.
Yeah.
And Catherine and Lydia had been fortunate enough to be never without partners, which was all that they had yet learned to care for at a ball. They returned, therefore, in good spirits to Longbourn, the village where they lived, and of which they were the principal inhabitants. They found Mr. Bennet still up. With a book, he was regardless of time. And of the present occasion, he had a good deal of curiosity as to the event of an evening which had raised such splendid expectations. He had rather hoped that all his wife's views of this stranger would be disappointed, but he soon found that he had a very different story to hear. Oh, my dear Mr. Bennet, as she entered the room, we have had the most delightful evening, a most excellent ball. I wish you had been there. Jane was so admired. Nothing could be like it. Everybody said how well she looked, and Mr. Bingley thought her quite beautiful and danced with her twice. There was a limit to how many times you could dance with a woman without people expecting you to marry her.
There was? Wow.
Like
So many
two
rules.
was the top. Like you could dance with her twice. You dance with her 3 times, and people are
And
expecting
that's
you to
already
propose and marry.
marriage. Wow.
Yeah, and if you
Okay.
don't, people will mock her, and people would think you are a cad, basically. That was the word.
Okay.
Where was I? Oh, yeah, twice.
Only think of that.
Only think of that, my dear. He actually danced with her twice. And she was the only creature in the room that he asked the second time. First of all, he asked Miss Lucas. I was so vexed to see him stand up with her. But however, he did not admit her at all, admire her at all. Indeed, nobody can, you know. Okay. And he seemed quite struck with Jane as she was going down the dance. So he inquired who she was and got introduced and asked her for the 2 next. Then the two third he danced with Miss King. And the 2 fourth, I don't know what that means, but whatever, with Maria Lucas. And the 2 fifth with Jane again. And the 2 sixth with Lizzie. And the boulanger, if he had had any compassion for me, cried her husband impatiently, he would not have danced half so much. For God's sake, say no more of his partners, or that he had sprained his ankle in the first dance. Oh, my dear, continued Miss Bennet, I am quite delighted with him. He's so excessively handsome, and his sisters are charming women. I never in my life saw anything more elegant than their dresses. I dare say the lace upon Mrs. Hurst's gown. Here she was interrupted again. Mr. Bennet protested against any description of finery. Where am I?
She was therefore obliged.
Oh, I think I went down too much. She was therefore obliged to seek another branch of the subject, and related with much bitterness of spirit and some exaggeration, the shocking rudeness of Mr. Darcy. But I can assure you, she added, that Lizzie does not lose much by not suiting his fancy, for he is the most disagreeable, horrid man, not at all worth pleasing. So high and so conceited that there was not enduring him. He walked there and he walked there, fancying himself so very great, not handsome enough to dance with. I wish you had been there, my dear, to have given him one of your set-downs. I quite detest the man.
Okay, I think we should stop here for our
Okay.
first session.
This is
It's
probably
been-
going to be really long anyway because we talked so much.
We are 1 hour and 10 minutes into this first.
Okay, let's
Episode.
not include in the description or.
You just froze. Can you hear me?
you are frozen as well. Oh, no, I can see you now. Yeah, you're fine.
You were frozen, but I didn't hear what you were saying.
I was saying that that we should not include like the number of chapters we actually went through in the description or the title, because people are just not going to get into it.
Yeah, let's just leave it as a mystery. Yeah. What will you find in this episode?
A lot of rambling.
Yeah, but we managed to read a lot, I think.
Anyway, I hope you guys are still here and that you guys decide that you enjoy this type of a book club in which we just read and discuss the books and everything that comes to mind about anything really related to the book, the characters, the time of it, the things that it reminds you of, whatever. This is what I like the most about reading, honestly. And reading with someone. Yes. I really enjoy reading with someone because it just gives you such a different way to look at the book. For example, for me, having already read the book, it makes me excited to like show you things that I want to show you from the book. Like I really love the way that this book is written. It's just hilarious. You know, it's like the humor is just really, it's just the finest, you know, it's just...
That's the first thing that I felt very different compared to miniseries, compared to movies. It is funnier. It is a lot more interesting that way.
Because it's very polite and it's very elegant, and they show that in the series, but it's also very funny, you know, and it's just, this is very often lost.
And something we have talked about before is that always in books, at least in books that are well written, of course, always in books, the characters are better fleshed out. They feel more real. They feel more
interesting and
more believable.
It's like it makes you want to read about them more. Yeah, you know, because of how you see them, the way that they are described in the book. You know, so I really like this. You know,
me too.
I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
I am, very much.
Okay.
So,
well, it's been a pleasure so far. We will continue, and hopefully someone will watch it and continue the conversation.
Yeah.
So, have a good one.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.